Okay, we start now. Hi, Sumit.
Hi, Khalol. Good evening.
Good evening. Nice to see you. And hi to
Nice to see
Kathmandu.
you.
So, can we start now? Is it a good time to start? I
Yes.
think we're all set, right? So,
Yeah.
I would begin by introducing myself. I'm Kollol Bhattacharjee. I am your host for this session of Bhava Samvad, brought to you by the Kalinga Literary Festival. And today we are being joined by Sumit Sharma Samir, who is the author of a fascinating new novel on immigration and the South Asian immigration experience, especially. And the name of the novel is Wake Up Ali, Wake Up. It's the English translated version of his celebrated Nepali novel Pravas, and it's been brought to the readers in South Asia by Vitasta of New Delhi. I have known Sumit for some time, and he's a good friend, and I wish him luck in promoting and taking the book to the readers who are very eagerly waiting to read the book. And I was quite struck by the with the tone of melancholy in your book, Sumit, and it's really something that. Immigrants all over the world can connect with, and I would say not just immigrants, but even any kind of displaced person can connect with that sort of a tone and that sort of sensibility that you have brought to your work. For the viewers who are joining us right now, just a quick introduction of Sumit Sharma Samir. Sumit, of course, works as a political advisor in the British Embassy in Kathmandu. And as we all know, those of us who cover Nepal and Nepali politics and culture and life, we know Kathmandu is a throbbing city of activities, politics, and you know everything with the great power gains and the rest of it. Along with it, it also brings a great deal of young genius like Sumit. And Kathmandu is something that I thought Sumit would be talking about that city more in his book. But I was actually surprised to see that he takes the narrative far beyond the limits of the mountains and the plains of Nepal and takes it to Canada and brings to us a novel which blends South Asian immigration experience in Canada, which to my mind, I've been a fan of Monica Ali, and when I was reading, it struck me that Monica Ali situated her novel in London, but Sumit, who comes from Kathmandu, who comes from Nepal, has actually picked up characters from Pakistan, from India, and situated them in Canada, and presented to us this very universal story of immigration and its various dimensions that we are very often likely to experience away from our homes, especially South Asian homes. Just a quick few words about the book is that this is a book quite different, as I have already said, from other kinds of immigration-related writings, and also other kinds of Nepali writings, or rather writings by Nepali authors. In the recent past, we have seen the likes of Manjushri Thapa and others. There is a certain kind of mountain, a sense of mountain and the sense of that Himalayan experience that often comes through. But in this book, perhaps the mountain element that comes through is the breeze of melancholy that I found very, very appealing. And as a reader, it really struck me the moment the book opens, that the monologue and the way it basically speaks to the reader, it almost as if the reader starts thinking with the author himself. And the book has several powerful characters, which really I wouldn't say much about the story, but I would say this much, that this is a very thought-provoking book that many of us would identify with, especially those of us who left home at a young age, moved on to a different city and started working, studying, and finally working. I would say many of us would actually identify with that tone and tenor of this book, and of course the various sentiments that comes through various characters, Pakistani, Indian, and of course the story is located in Canada, so you can imagine how tense that can become and emotional at times it can become when you are far from home and you come from certain lower middle class background and certain South Asian values. Without taking much of your time, Sumit, I would request you to tell us and also your viewers and readers, without revealing much about the plot, what is this particular novel all about? What is Wake Up Ali? Wake Up.
Thanks, Kolol. I think you have more or less captured every other thing that I should be elaborating in the due course of time. But Wake Up Ali, Wake Up Now is a title and of the book, and this title has been picked up with consultation with the publisher. The character, the Ali himself, who comes from Pakistan, Lahore, he's a reflective guy. He likes to have some sort of inner discourse with himself over a period of time that continues unless the novel comes to an end. So he always hear this sound voice from within that comes, asking him to wake up to something. So Renuji suggested, my publisher suggested perhaps this would be the right title for the book, and then we picked up this. So Wake Up Ali, Wake Up Now is a wake up call, I think, to all of the people who have lived through 1960s to 2020, and then though it's a small novella, it has tried to capture the travelogue of a modern man, which has been represented by the protagonist Ali. And I don't know how much justice I had been able to do with the book, but my intention was to, in fact, capture the history of the last 300 years, wherein the modernity really began. And at this point of time, we are in a cusp wherein modern man is in the stance wherein he is in the process of disintegration. Primarily, why I say is that we are faced with the fourth stage of industrialization, and we are kind of peated by the rise of the information technology, biotech, artificial intelligence, and all those things. And at the end of the novel, the protagonist really questions: are we able to sort of reclaim what human is? Reclaim our identity as a human being. So this is more or less a travelogue of that period I call of the modernity period of the last 300 years, which has been represented by this protagonist Ali. Hello.
Sumit, you are from Nepal, which is a beautiful country, and I am a great fan and a student of Nepal and Nepalese culture and politics and life. And I've always wondered the deeper you get into Nepal, the more you are fascinated by its various layers and layers of history and culture that it throws up. And of course, the stories and myths and legends of Nepal, whether it is the modern myths like Yeti or the ancient myths of monsters of the mountains and all the gods and goddesses that you have, and coming to the post-colonial times, you have not delved into Nepal, yet you
Yeah.
have gone beyond. What has really gone into how did you come to Canada, in the sense, of course, is it also slightly autobiographically influenced? That is what I'm curious to know. That what was your process of creative process in this, as far as
Yeah.
this novel is concerned?
Yeah, Kolol, I think it's precisely because even I have had a chance to sort of travel to India to do my undergrad, and then went to London to do my master's, and second master's to Canada, Toronto. And perhaps somewhere I also carry a bit of my experience, my interaction with the people I have met over a period of time, diaspora in London and in Canada, and my interaction with them, my experiences about them. And then I think most of the writers would not disagree with me if I say that you find your characters from around your society that you observe so closely, right? So and then you add some spices to make relevant in terms of character, to you fictionalize it to some extent. So That's how it is. I think it's also my personal exposure. The generation we are, uh, our entire generation, that the kind of feeling, that the kind of experience we have had over a period of time for the last 30, 40 years, and then the whole transition that we went through as a character, and somewhere perhaps that representation was made by this central character, and then perhaps the other also, and some form of imagination, some form of creativity, some form of observation. I think this is how you come up with the book.
I look at the characters that you have brought in. For example, Zara, a very powerful female character, I understand, right? So,
Yeah.
how did you compose her? What all went into bringing her to life?
Well, I mean, I think it's more than Jara. I think it's Ali who. So is the kind of character that Ali is, and then the Jara has to be. The opposite of that Ali has to be Jara, wife. I mean, who is kind of probing, who is kind of stand for what she believes in, and she argues vehemently why she believes in certain ways that she does. And then the Ali is a kind of character who is always in ambivalent, and who is always doubt his own identity. He always questions, he seeks his identity, he tries to find out the reason of his existence and all those stuffs. And Jara is a middle class determined woman who wants her family to really catch up with the social ladder and move ahead in the strata of society. And she wants her kid to go to good school. They want their own private house and car and all this stuff. And she has to be a bit bold compared to what Ali is. And that's how she's been brought up into the whole plot.
Um, the characters that we have sketched are primarily from Pakistan or Pakistani background. Have you traveled to Pakistan yourself ever?
No, I haven't. I
So how
haven't
did you
traveled.
think of them and the cultural sensibilities, etc.? What all was the items that went into it?
Yeah, I mean, as I
Also,
said,
did you and also Lahore, especially the references to Lahore.
yeah.
How did you bring them up, and did you consult it with your friends, or did it just come through conversation with your friends during your Canada years?
Yeah, I mean, I have had this opportunity to interact with a lot of people from Pakistan when I was in Canada, and as well as in London. London was way back, but then a lot of things depend upon the personal research that I did, research on Lahore, and the kind of. But my thrust of the novel is really not to get inside the cultural aspect of that particular society. What I've tried to pick up is the common issue, that sort of bind the South Asian nations together, be it for Pakistan, be it for India, Bangladesh, or Nepal. I mean, the story of migration, which is so common to many of us. I mean, the fact says this. I mean, 2019, the total contribution of the remittance to our respected GDP. If you look at India, it was 2.8. In Nepal, it was 27%, and in Pakistan, it was 7.9%. Right. So, my intention was to pick this story of the migration that binds us together, rather than getting inside to the and exploring more of the cultural sensibilities aspect of any particular society. Hello. Hi, Kalol.
Yeah.
We seem to have lost you for a brief
Yeah,
moment.
yeah, no, it's okay. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, yeah. No, yeah. So I was telling you is that my intention was to pick up the issue that's more common to South Asian nations, South Asian countries, rather than to really get into the deeper cultural sensibilities aspect of any particular society.
Mhm, mhm. That's a very fascinating way of addressing the whole South Asian immigrant experience. What is really common? You are talking about the commonalities between, say, Pakistani, Indian, Nepalese, and Bangladesh experience of immigration. What are the common strands that you picked up during your stay abroad?
Yeah, I mean, common. I think this particular the issue of migration itself is so common to our societies, right? So, I mean, many people migrate to Gulf countries and to first world countries as well, and that is I mean, that is similarity between most of our society. And there, we are sort of, we come together, South Asian nations, because of our legacy, history, art, architecture, cuisine, the way we dress, the way we organize our festivals, and things like that. I mean, there's so many common things. I mean, for me, if a Nepali guy who goes outside of Nepal or to the west, first thing he does is he tries to look into find out his own community, Nepali diaspora, and then if at all he got to extend a little bit, then he sort of goes and find out where the Indians are or Pakistani are. So there are a lot of commonalities that bind us together, and this is one such issue in modern time, I think, that binds our society together, Kalol.
Tell us a little bit more about the Indian characters, the Indian characters who appear in your novel, and what role do they play in the story?
Yeah, so Ria is also a young Indian woman who has migrated to Canada. She's also from lower middle class family, and she's been there to sort of to provide economic assistance. She's there because she has to provide the economic assistance to her family, because her husband is bedridden due to some reason. And she come in contact with the protagonist Ali, and then they fall into relationships, and then she kind of I think represent independent woman of our time, who uh, sort of is a part of family, as well as she is in a line, in a boundary, maintains a boundary wherein she wants to break that boundary as well as and be independent and take decisions for her, and later on sort of also realizes that there is a limit to our own human freedom as well, through, I mean, different expressions that she made in the novel. That's there That's been displayed by this Indian character Ria, and I think in a way she sort of also help the protagonist Ali to. She helps him. She helps to humanize this character Ali, who is also kind of deviated from his regular ways of living. I mean, his marriage is in crisis, and so she in a way also sort of bring him back and then humanizes this character, I think.
Can you hear me,
Yeah,
Sumit?
I can.
Yeah. Sumit, you are very much, if I can situate you in the history of Nepal's, last 20 years or 2 decades, you are kind of the post-monarchy generation, right?
Yeah.
As kind of that. So, and then you had the whole upheaval in Nepal that has taken place in terms of transition from monarchy to democracy. How has that influenced you, or did that at all influence you in some way?
Well, I mean, lot of in the political transitions that takes place in any particular society, I mean, does influence the entire generations that witness or experience that. And I think there have that experience. I do have that experience as well. I mean, I also grew up during the time when the monarchy was there. I was a student, and then we have seen the couple of movements that have taken place. Um, But it also, is a time when you got exposure through different visits that you do as a student to the outside world, and we have definitely been influenced by the changes that have taken place in our country. Our society is also rapidly changing. I mean, it's not the same that it used to be 20 years back. The way we look at the gender relations today in Nepali society is completely different that it used to be 20 years ago. The relationship between children and parents have changed. The society, the parents, the most of the parents are situated are held back in Nepal, and their children are either in the Middle East or in the first world countries. So a lot of things have changed. I mean, and we do, as part of being in the center of all the changes, we do get are influenced by whatever is taking place around us.
Nepal has very rich cultural and literary traditions, going all the way back to several centuries. Uh, if I can look at modern Nepal, also writings in English and post-colonial writings of Nepal and also India, where do you locate yourself in that tradition? Where do you come from, Sumit?
It's a very tough question, Kalol. I think I have just started. I sort of
But I
this is
ask
my
you this because fiction is always the toughest thing to write, and
yeah.
it's also not something that can be really narrated in public. It has to be enjoyed alone. And
Yeah.
it's a very intense thing to work upon, and you have done that. Therefore, I'm tempted to ask you that you must be coming from a tradition in that sense. So I would like to know where you come from.
Well, I think we all, this is my personal opinion. I mean, we may agree or disagree, but I think we all carry some bit of tradition and live in little bit of past, present, and future. I mean, there's never been a time in the history where there's been complete disconnect, except in a couple of times in the world history, right? So that way, I do carry my tradition along with me. I mean, in terms of writing, this is my first piece of novel that I have written in Nepali, which got translated into English. And this, I think, carries more the pain of the migrant workers, which is I feel that I have been able to connect with a lot of many people out there who has left their home and have migrated to different parts of different other countries in the world. And I mean, there are many other good writers who have been writing there, already produced so many number of novels. This is my first writing. So I come from a background, I think, where my family, history is precisely when my family is much more concentrated on either in politics or in literature. My father, my father's elder brothers, Jagdish Kimiri, he's also a renowned literary figure. He's no more with us, but so he's been writing different forms of literature. So somehow, right from the childhood, there's always been this atmosphere in the house, wherein you are exposed to different kind of books, learnings, and interactions, either to your father or to your father's elder brothers. And this is where I come from, Kulol, really.
So that explains where you come from. So there is, of
Yeah.
course, a tradition there, and also, looking at it. Please forgive me if I strike a wrong note. But the immigrants that you are talking about are the South Asian immigrants in the West,
Yeah.
and especially, when you talk of in Bangladesh, Nepal, Indian or Pakistani immigrants in Canada, they are relatively speaking rather well-off immigrants in the scheme of, or rather in the scale of immigrants all over the world. I mean, I'm not going to say that their experience is any less intense than others, but look at the immigrants who suffer, say, in Indian immigrants or Nepali immigrants who suffer in Iraq. When a terrorist attack happens, we don't know anything about them. How are they? How are they surviving? How are they managing? Or the condition of South Asian immigrants sometimes also in better off countries like Israel. And you must be knowing about the condition of Nepalese workers in Israel was recently quite discussed, and their problems were also highlighted. So I'm just saying that in the scheme of the universalness, there are of course the less fortunate and the more fortunate ones, right? And
True,
do you
true.
also think that there are more economically disadvantaged sections of immigrants that exist? They also perhaps would require some voice at some point.
Yeah, of course, I agree with you. Kulal. There are, I mean, the people who goes to Gulf countries, if you compare them with the ones who goes to the countries like US, UK, or Canada, they are much more in advantageous position. But I think diaspora is basically there's some elements that makes them common, right? So they are dispersed community who are away from their homeland, and by virtue of being dispersed away from homeland, they feel they are in an exile, and since they are in exile, they always have this nostalgic feeling of getting back to their homeland. So at least few of these features sort of binds them together, make the story common. And of course, but there are the advantages and disadvantages based on which country you go, and the the problems that you face there in terms of jobs, in terms of your housing and accommodation. It does differ where these people are going. Yeah.
In fact, when I was reading your work, it struck me that there is so little between South Asia and Canada on the literary front produced by South Asian people. And here is a book which actually talks about the South Asian experience in Canada. So I'm not getting into the Punjabi pop songs which are produced in great number in
Yeah.
Canada and in Brampton and everywhere. I'm talking about serious literary work like yours. There hasn't been any such work that I can remember in recent years where the South Asian experience in Canada was kind of picked up and shown to the whole world. But you have done that, and I think in doing so, you have given us some kind of a Nepali Canadian literature, if that could be correctly used in this case. How has the Canadian experience been, Sumit, for you? I mean, has Canada did Canada welcome you when you lived there? Was it friendly?
Well, I mean, it's again, for me, I mean, there's always in a feeling of nostalgic. I mean, I had been to London and to Canada. I had been there and stayed there for a couple of years, but then I never been able to extend my time more than that, because I always have this longingness to come back and then, be in Nepal, in Kathmandu. And but Canadian society is a very welcoming society, as far as I have understood. I have experienced. They are there are a lot of people from South Asian, from China, from some other parts of the world as well. I mean, and they reside there peacefully. The living condition, the facility of the states that's been given to the people there is very good. The healthcare is very sound, and then the education system are also good. It really depends on who you are asking this question for, but personally for me, there's always been this longingness to come back and then stay and be rooted to your root all the time. But as things are changing so rapidly, Kalol, this whole notion of coming and settling to your root may also change over a period of time, as we witness how things are changing at the global level. But as for now, I think I'm pretty much happy to come back, and then despite Canadian society being welcoming, but there are also literature that suggests that the sort of racism has been the bedrock institutions of the Canadian society. There are a lot of many people who have suffered at the hands of these institutions in the past. But I think it's much more welcoming when you compare that with some of the other countries in the world. Yeah.
I'm curious to know a little bit about the endorsement that reportedly Manisha Koirala has extended to you. I would like to know, has Manisha Koirala endorsed your work?
Yes, he has. She has. In
That's
fact, she
great.
was.
That's
Yeah.
great news.
Yeah. Thank you. I
Yeah.
mean, she's the one who sort of inaugurated my book in Nepali, Pravas. There was the book came during the time of COVID, and then I have had this opportunity to go and meet with her at a residence, and she said that, okay, let's do at my house. So one of the bite, I picked it up, and the photograph was taken. And then my father's elder brother, he's also a literary figure, Nagendra Sarma. He was the other gentleman to do that. So both of these people, they did this. And Manisha Koirala, later on, I requested her to write something on this, the English version of it, and so she agreed, and she did send that endorsement.
Yours is a COVID production. I mean, when the
Yeah.
whole world was suffering and was actually locked up at home, you were writing a novel, and you also found a found a publisher. Could you tell us how was it? Did you write it all in Nepal, in Kathmandu, at home, or were you somewhere else? How did it go?
Well, honestly, I had been writing this for the last 4 years. I mean, I'm not a professional novelist who could produce a novel every 2 years, one novel every 2 years. I mean, I have been doing this for the last 4 years, and then I had been writing when I was also in Canada, right? So, but then in Nepal, the COVID was also an opportunity wherein you spend a lot of time in house, and then you get a time to rework on that and things like that. And I didn't find any publisher here in Nepal who were willing to publish my work. Precisely, I think because this was my very first book, and then during the time of COVID, none of the publishers were willing to risk the new writers like me. But then I went ahead. I always had this belief that there's something that I believe that's something to offer, and it would be taken positively. And then um, so I came up with the 1,000 copies of the Nepali version of it, and then it was reviewed in different press. Almost 16 reviews appeared over a period of 2 years' time. And I requested a friend of mine to get it translated, Sushrut Acharya. He translated it from Nepali to English. In a process, I also met, the columnist in India, Atul Kumar Thakur. Is a good friend of mine now. And then I said, Atul, I looking forward to get this published in India. And then, he was kind enough to ask for the manuscript. And he said that he finished that in, 2 sittings. And then he was really positive about it. He put me through the Vitatsa, and then we got connected, and Vitatsa was interested to take it forward from there. Yeah.
So, I mean, I don't want to really go far in the future, but I'm tempted to ask you: is there, since Manisha Koirala has endorsed your novel, is there a chance that the novel could turn into a film at some point in future?
I can't say that for sure right now, Kalol, but then I have had this interaction in Chennai with the film director Arun Vaidyanathan. He has made some Tamil films, and he said that he's interested in making a film out of this novel at some point of time, but I don't know when that time would be. But he has definitely shown interest in coming up as a film for this novel.
That's fascinating. And your novel also mentions, if I remember correctly, Benazir Bhutto at some point, right?
Yeah.
What exactly is the context in which Benazir finds a mention in your novel? That she has been inspiration for several novels like Salman Rushdie's Shame, but I think you have just mentioned her as part of a particular narrative in your novel.
Yeah, I mean, it has been picked up as one of the important event that has taken place in 2007. I think when
She
she
was
was
assassinated.
killed. Yeah, she was assassinated, and then this protagonist who is living in Canada at that point of time, he gets worried because of that particular event, and he calls back his home. So the idea of bringing that important event is also to sort of sort of portray how the society was moving ahead over a period of time at that point of time, and how protagonist sort of reconnects himself back to Lahore, asking his family how they are doing when that event has really happened. So it's not in depth, nothing like that. It's just that incident has been picked up as one of the ways of storytelling, right? So
So I'm coming back to Nepal right now. Um, Now, having learned that you come from a literary household, that your family members were in literature or are in literature, and so are you now, and you work as a political advisor, and you live in a highly politically charged country. So, and this is election time. So, I would ask you, how do you see the election unfolding, Sumit? Because this is an avoidable question for you.
well, I think one
What is going
important
to
thing.
what's going to happen?
Kalol, as a non-fiction writer yourself, who's been reporting for the Hindu for such a long time now, and yourself as a writer, of on Afghanistan, I can understand your interest in politics, but I think what's happening right now is, but I don't think I'll be able to elaborate much on that right now. But then what I can tell you is that the election particularly is different compared to the past elections, because there are a lot of independent candidates that you see are participating in this election, and I don't know what the result would be. I cannot say if it would have any implications to the larger political process. But I can surely share one thing, and that is that the way the society is, rapidly transforming. We have a number of people, young people, who are willing to take charge and sort of sending a message that no longer they need an umbrella of the traditional political parties or the political class to stand on their feet in Nepali society. I think that's a big shift, in a sense that that patron-client relationship between the political class and the society, wherein the society and the new brand of youth are taking charge and taking stand on what they believe. You don't have to necessarily agree to what they believe, but the very fact that they are a part of this process, I think, is a major shift if you look at the past elections. Yeah.
Sumit, we are moving to the last segment of the interview, and I'm tempted to ask you this: that what is the most favorite part of the book for you personally?
Um, I think the beginning itself is important.
Would you like to read any part of the book?
Yeah, I would love to. I think we have some
That'd
time
be
to do
great.
that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
maybe you can do it for us.
So I would like to talk about this character, Zara, as well, wherein she claims what does Pakistan mean to her, when she was arguing that with her, debating that with her husband, wherein she says
Right.
that so when she offered Ali, the protagonist, why don't you go to Canada for some time, so that you do some earning, or the situation of our family would be good, and then you can always come back. We are always here for you. And the Ali says, if at all I have to go, let's all go together. And then she says that um, um, So why don't you want to come with me? When the Ali asked, then Pakistan, she says, Pakistan has given me my being, the meaning to my existence. Yes, our society is not without its problems, but I feel that my life finds meaning here. I feel proud. This pride is a gift from my tradition. I won't say that tradition alone is preeminent, but I also don't consider it expandable. I don't consider my traditions to be the past. They are alive with me in my present. Yet we call this vibrant stream primitive, all in the name of progress, in the name of development, as if the past held no developments, as if the tradition of the truths established by Muhammad and the Sufi weren't progressive at all. So it kind of says, the character Zara Wesi is coming from, and how strong and bold she is, and also, um, you know,
And so
I,
in depth.
yeah, I'd also like to read one paragraph, if you allow me, when we talk about how ambivalent or how doubtful the Ali is himself. Um so um, so when they had this argument, and then they settles down, then he says that Zara fell silent. After that, I too remained quiet. There was nothing more to say. We had exchanged all our knowledge, experience, and bitterness with each other. I couldn't counter Zara. I surrendered before her reasoning ability. It wasn't in my nature to surrender, especially to my wife, but I did it anyway. There was a reason for it. I wanted to be alone, away from Jara and Aisha, away from discord and disharmony, liberated from day to day responsibilities, free from Jara's daily nagging. I was exhausted by everything. I was looking for something, a new place where I could live carefree. I saw an opportunity in Jara's proposition, an opportunity for self exploration. Then I thought, what will people think if they find out about me? Maybe they will say, what kind of a lunatic is he? Sometimes he yearns to live with his whole family, while at other times looks for solitude away from them. He sometimes chooses society and crowds, then other times he chooses exile. I'm sure if anyone was aware of this contradiction within me, they would be astonished. But then I asked myself again, what is so surprising about this? Don't we all live with some kind of duality, with a bit of lunacy? Contradiction is an integral part of all of us. Perhaps it is man's pure essential character. Man doesn't embrace contradiction by choice, it emerges at birth and disappears at death. It's just that only some people recognize this, most others don't. Some accept it, others don't. So I think it also talk about, the doubt, the kind of doubt that this guy carry about himself, and the way he's been portrayed in the novel. Yeah.
Yeah, to actually to hear it, you read those sections is actually, giving me sort of, sort of new idea of how the conversation must have unfolded when you were thinking of writing it, and the whole, you were perhaps conceiving it. So that's
Yeah.
really fascinating to even to get a glimpse of the author's own thinking and the author's own ideas in this process. I'm again coming back to your own experience. Since you have written this fascinating book, and I would again ask you, who are your the usual authors that you read? Who are the ones who that you like to read? Maybe the classics, or the Nepalese authors, or Indian authors, Pakistani authors. Who do you read?
I think I fall into the category where, though this is my first attempt to write novel, I read a lot of non-fiction work as well, and my range is variety of range. I love classics. The style, the monologue style. I love the way it's been written in the past, either by the writers like Dostoevsky, and the stream of consciousness like James Joyce and all those writers. I also read a lot of Hindi literature. Premchand. I like the novels by Agay, Nirmal Verma. I like the recently Nepali writers. Some of the Nepali writers have started enjoying their books. Is Ramlal Joshi has recently written, come up with a novel, Bahama. I have recently read that. I like, Buddhisagar, Basanta Basant. We also have a range of writers who have been coming up with. So my range is Sometimes I find time and some others I don't. But the way I do it is like, basically, if I don't read for 3 months, right? So I tell myself now, the time has come to remodel your mind, and then I get into it, and then I started reading as much as possible. Yeah, that's how it works for me.
And are you planning to take the book to various literary festivals in India, Pakistan? Karachi Literary Festival, I'm sure it would be a fascinating venue for you personally to take the book there.
Yeah, I just had a conversation with a friend of mine in Pakistan yesterday, and he was telling me the same thing as you said, the Karachi Literary Festival. But as we understand, the situation in Pakistan right now is not stable because of the political, the attempt to assassinate Imran Khan a couple of days back, I think. So let's see how it unfolds, and if they would have an event, and if I get an invitation, I'd love to. Sure, yeah.
And would you be traveling to India as well with the book?
Recently, I was in Chennai to do a book talk with Arun Vidyanathan, the film director, Tamil film director, and then I went to Delhi as well, wherein the managing editor of CNN IPN, Jaka Jaka, a good friend of mine, we had an interaction in the book. And if I get an opportunity for on different other literary festivals, I'd look forward, and I'd love to come. Sure, yeah. And India is kind of where I spend my South India is where I did my undergrad in Loyola College, Chennai. I love to go there again and again. I love to come to India. Yeah, it's very close in terms of proximity, as well as a lot of friends there. No.
So, what are you planning next, Sumit?
I have one plot in my mind. I don't know how long will it take. Again, I'm planning one fiction, but that would also not, some. It should be based on it. It will be based on the issue that's common to South Asian countries, and would not be only confined within Nepal. Yeah.
Hmm. And as far as your own fraternity is concerned, I mean, you work as a political advisor. Uh,
Mm.
how do you? How have they taken it that one of them has come out and written a book? It's very rare to find a political advisor in an embassy to write a book. And how did you find the time? I mean, this is the most important thing. Well, I understand it was done during the time of COVID lockdowns, but still, you mentioned 4 years was the period that you spent on it. Uh, how was it? How did you find the time while working as a full-time worker? I mean, in an embassy.
Yeah, I mean, office is there's a lot of I mean, emphasis has been given to sort of balance work and personal life in our office, and I somehow find time to sort of commit myself full time to my office, as well as um, do reading and writing. um, Sometimes if there's a requirement, I can go to an extent of sleeping for 3 to 4 hours one day as well. I mean, I have this habit of, I think it all depends on your habit, and then I have this habit of molding my thought process, and then get things done from myself in a way that I wanted to. So the habit is the key, and it pushes me to get things done, to do my work. At the same time, maintain your professional work and the family life as well simultaneously.
I was looking at my notes and I felt that I haven't asked you one of the most important questions that I've been thinking about, which is that how was it to get Pravas translated into Wake Up Ali, Wake Up Now? Pravas is, of course, a Nepali novel, and it was translated into English.
Yeah.
What has happened in the process? I mean, is the novel has the novel undergone a certain sort of a slight change, or has it been like has it become better, or do you think that the original novel in Nepali was stronger? What is your personal opinion, frank opinion, about the translation?
Yeah. So I I'm very happy with the way the Susrut has really captured the flow and the essence of my Nepali version of the work. But what I've done in the English version is that I have deleted a lot of again the monologue side of it. When I went through it again, I felt that you should not be irritating your readers too much with your thoughts that come to your mind, and the thoughts that the protagonist is carrying throughout the novel. So that way I have deleted lot many content from towards the end of the novel, but I think I have continued with the real essence, which is sort of the hybrid culture that the protagonist is a representative of. That essence is not lost. But I think Susrut has done justice to the book I have written in Nepali. Yeah.
And when it comes to taking it in other languages, since it has been translated from Nepali to English, would you also like it to be translated in other languages, say French, for example?
Yeah, I'd love to. I mean, if there's any interest by some of the publishers from that part of the world. I mean, I was in touch recently with one of the literary agent in Canada, but she's still going through the manuscript, and then she has shown interest initially. But let's see how it unfolds. I'm not quite sure how it will unfold. But definitely, as a writer, I would love that my book gets translated in as many languages as possible.
And just the last couple of questions, since we are almost near the end of the talk. You have mentioned that the world is undergoing a lot of change, and of course, and how you obliquely mentioned about the conflict that we are now witnessing in Europe. The world is not really the same as it was 4 years ago. Uh, how do you think you would be planning your next literary ventures in this context? What could be the appealing theme to you in this context? What themes are you playing with?
Well, one of the things that I can quickly think of is the sea change um, in the posture of human being himself or herself. The way they are affected by the fourth stage of industrial revolution is kind of will be relevant for us for the time to come. I think that's one thing, and the other thing could be how the climate induced displacements would have the implications of it to us in the days to come, because recently we have seen the flood in Pakistan. We have seen the economic collapse of Sri Lanka. These kind of events, for sure, I mean, would form a part of my thinking and my writing. Yeah.
You mentioned modernity as one of the factors that you began to toy with while writing about this novel from 1960s to 70s, 80s. What really was the element that prompted you to look at modernity? Because we are at a stage, where we're done with criticizing the problems of Second World War, and now we are looking at what they call the algorithm-driven industrial revolution. Uh, what is the 1960s experience that appeals to you as modern?
No, I mean, 1960s. Primarily, it's a phase, where we go back and we learn how the globalization has always been there and throughout the human history, but the way it has sort of really picked up during 60s, 70s, 80s,
Yeah, because
right.
I would like to come in and say that it was actually in the 1960s that we have the great student movement of 1967, the anti-Vietnam movement, where all the civil society movements somehow are getting charged and sort of beginning. And then we have all the backlashes of the Nixon era, the West, the United States, and then the Thatcherism. And then, of course, what happens with Reagan and the end of the Cold War. And now we have the post-Cold War period, and coming all the way down to the Russian campaign in Ukraine. But when we look at the modern man today, the modern history today, doesn't it look better than what we are experiencing today?
Well, I think the modern man, when the construction of modern man was made, there was a time when you go back to 300 years back. He was coming out of the Middle Ages, and then his connection with the nature was lost. Right, so he was looked upon as someone who is rational, who is individualistic, who follows certain parameters of life that is considered to be a modern. And slowly what happens is, like this, over a period of time, the advancement, the new inventions in science and technology, he's faced with that as well. I mean, we have seen how these multiple problems that's been brought up by the likelihood of the nuclear war or ecological collapse, or the technological disruptions brings to us, to our society at large. So modern man is the byproduct of the historical process. At that point of time, it was important to sort of dissociate himself with the agricultural mode of production and get inside the industrial mode, because that was the freedom at that point of time, right? So but the way we are going forward, I mean, there are positive, there are skeptics who really say that the biological knowledge of human being and brought that together with the computing power and the data, will be able to hack human being, right? So so the way we are moving forward, my question would be, are we really in a position tomorrow to guarantee that that the freedom is ensured for the human being, that the path they have approached initially 300 years ago for the sake of freedom, justice, and all those stuffs, but the way we are moving forward, are we really heading towards the freedom that we had always wanted to, Kalul? I mean, it's not that I'm not trying to compare that which is good or which is bad. It's just that I'm looking at the process and try to look at the evolution of mankind in different historical junctures. So that's my point of view, Kalul.
Sumit, if I ask you very briefly, what is the future of the common man? Because I think your book is about common man and common people.
I don't know. I don't know what the future holds. I know we are in the cusp right now of redefining what that common man would look like. But the question is, with the advent of artificial intelligence, biotech, and all these stuffs, will we be able to do that or not? So it largely, we have to look into the future to find out that answer.
Thank you, and fascinating talking to you, Sumit. And because I'm sure we would continue to talk in the coming days, and I'm sure your book and you would be traveling to various literary festivals, not just in India and South Asia, but perhaps in other parts of the world, including Canada, United Kingdom, United States, and other parts, as I can imagine. The immigrant experience right now is very fascinating because it is also part of our political process, as you must have seen how whether it is the Indian politicians or even the Nepalese politicians. I remember Mr. KP Sharma Oli had visited India in February 2016, and the biggest public gathering, I was actually at the garden of the embassy of Nepal, the Barakhamba Road, where literally hundreds and hundreds of young Nepalese citizens had arrived to welcome Mr. Oli, and all of them wanted to take a selfie with Mr. Oli, and that really, energized the elderly statesman. And it was quite obvious that this is now not just part of an experience abroad, it is also something that is being harvested and brought back home by the political leaders for their own purpose, for whatever good or bad, whatever reasons that is.
Yeah.
But I think the experience of an immigrant and the voice of an immigrant and the stories and the sentiments that they have an eternal and universal value. And it is really, really to your credit that you have brought out that particular episode from the lives of South Asian immigrants in Canada, and not just Pakistani but Indian and also Canadian experience to your readers all over the world. I wish you all the best, Sumit. And
Thanks, Kalol.
you know,
Thanks, and
thank
I'd
you.
really like to thank you for your time, despite being your busy schedule. You agreed to be
No, not
here.
at all.
Thank you so much, and I'd like to thank
Thank
the
you.
KLF Bhava Samvad as well for this wonderful opportunity. Thanks, everyone. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.